All right, peace and love, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started while we allow some others to enter into the room. The Genesis Gateway roundtable discussions are being facilitated by a conglomerate of beneficial owners who have partnered together to bring you quality education. Over the coming weeks, our goal is to discuss the woes of Babylon in the form of real life issues that we know people are dealing with. And hopefully we can give you all some insight on what it's going to take to elevate yourself, educate yourself, and edify you in a way that's going to propel you forward in a positive way. You may hear different presenters in the coming weeks, but just know that we're all working together. By your participation in this call, you are appointed to serve in the capacity of trustee with the express duty to safeguard all information presented. The content of this call constitutes trust property, and this call itself is established as a trust. And as trustee, you're fully responsible for maintaining the integrity of the information shared while on these calls, and the beneficial owners are held harmless from any misuse of the information you receive. This is a forum of participation, so we may ask you to provide feedback, we may ask you questions, we may ask you to unmute, right? So you can also place your comments in the chat. And if you have a question, just raise your hand and we will call on you to unmute your mic if you have a question. We try to keep our calls very orderly. We ask that you keep your videos off and that you keep your mics muted as to not take away from the learning and experience of others. If you do have the floor while you're done speaking, just yield the floor back to the speaker of the evening so that we can keep things smoothly transitioning throughout the call for all attendees. All right, put a 1 in the chat if everyone is understanding these instructions as they have been set forth. Do me a favor, put a 1 in the chat. And for those of you that are visiting us from another platform, feel free to engage in the live chat of the channel that you are currently visiting. Right? All right, my name is Nadiva. It's a pleasure to meet you all. And I will now give the floor to Mikhail.
Thank you, Nadiva. Peace and love to everyone on this call this evening. Glad you could make it. I definitely want to thank you for taking the time out to spend a little time with us. It's a blessing for us to be able to be here with you this evening because we have so much that we want to do, so much that we want to share with you as well. Of course, we don't have a lot of time to do that. But those who are on the call this evening, if this is your first time being on this call, just put in a chat and tell me what you're looking for, why you came on the call. I just want to kind of get an idea of, because I know what I'm on the call for. There's some others I know why they're on the call. But if you could tell me in the chat, what made you decide to come on this call this evening? It could be a 1 word or it could be a sentence, up to you. But just want to know, why are you on this call today? What led you to this call? Because I would like to believe that you were led by someone, or maybe, the Most High Father said, you need to be on this call at this time. Because everything we do is on a timeline. And as we stand on that timeline, as we move forward, we interact with people. We come in contact with different people because we want to help them. We want to make their life better than what it already is. So that's why I'm asking, why were you on this call today? Did someone invite you to the call? Did you see a link and you said, hey, I want to be on this call. I don't see what's going on. I want to know what they're talking about. What is the Genesis Gateway? Um, some of the questions that may be floating around. But I really want to know, you know, is this your first time? Put a chat two in a chat if this is your first time being on one of these calls, because we really want to address some concerns that we've been hearing out here in the public. There's a lot going on in this country, and if you're outside the country, um, I know it's still going to affect you either directly or indirectly. But we really want to be able to give you some answers to walk away with. All right. Okay. Led to this call for the purpose of learning more than what I already know. That's perfect because we want to build on what you already know. You know, if you have a firm foundation, then we can build on that foundation. Knowledge changes your situation. We know that. Some people have that knowledge that they've received on top of what they've already gathered, and they are in a position where um, they may not have any major financial concerns at all. And if they don't have any major financial concerns, then pretty much they're doing okay. They're doing all right. So there's knowledge out here that can change your financial situation. It really is. I know that. There are others that know that as well. That's the kind of information we want to share with as many people as we possibly can to change your situation. Yes, how to combat the Babylonian system effectively. I understand where you're coming from because that was my desire 20 plus years ago. And so over a period of time, I started to gather the information and locate the answers that I needed so that I can see a clear picture of how to exit the Babylonian system. And when I exit that Babylonian system, I'm not exiting with empty hands. I have something in my hands. I have resources. I have substance in my hand and knowledge. Let me give you an example. Um, the Most High told me several years ago, he said, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much interest you receive and how much interest you pay out. And if you're receiving more interest than what you're paying out, you will get ahead financially and you will have a very enjoyable life and you won't be struggling financially. That's very important. At first, I didn't understand that, but I do now. More than you believe, more than you realize, because I can show you an example where if you are receiving more than what you're paying out, you will get ahead financially. So what if you were paying out $1,200 every year in donations, just paying out $1,200 every year, but you received from that $1,200 $2,800? I can show you an example where you pay out $1,200 in a year and you receive $2,880 back from that $1,200 that you actually sent out, that you released into this system that we call commerce or the Babylonian system. What you put into that system, there's a return on that. And that's what entrepreneurs think about. If I pay this, if I give you this, what am I going to receive in return? It should be more than what I put in. And every time you pay out, there is a return. Now, the issue is this. Have you met anyone that can break that down for you and show you how what you receive is greater than what you give? A lot of people say it's better to give than to receive. That is true. I've heard that and I've read that in scripture. Because what you give, you will receive more in return every single time. And that is or considered a secret in society because there are corporations that don't want you to know the truth. Now, of course, we won't go deep into this evening because we only have a short amount of time. But we want to come to an agreement this evening that if you want answers, the answers that will change your financial situation and potentially your health as well. But if you want answers that initially will address your financial concerns, then the Genesis Gateway is the next step for you. It really is. Because this is really a public call, and there's not a lot that we can share. We can give you a perspective. We can give you an idea, a different understanding on your situation and how this information can totally change your life. Why? Because knowledge is the key. This type of knowledge opens the door for you and gives you unlimited options. Why? Because as I said before, no matter what you give, you will receive more in return. Now, what's going to be important, and I want to stress this as well, I can't come to your home, knock on the door, and say, hey, put that remote control down. Let's go. That's me walking 100 steps towards you. I need you to meet me halfway. Okay? I need you to meet me halfway. If you can meet me halfway, then I can guide us from there. The Genesis Gateway can guide you to the end of the tunnel, and you'll be in a better position than you were today. I always want to share with people also that keep in mind, if I come into your life and I meet you and we have a conversation, my goal is to make sure that you are better after I leave than you were when I first met you. Is that fair to say? If I can do that, then I've done something good. I've made an impact on your life in a positive way. And that's like our Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach. When he comes into your life, you will never be the same. You really won't. But tonight, everybody is dealing with some type of financial need. That's what brings us together. And we know that the knowledge is out there. We just don't know who has it. And I guess you could say that we've gone and taken different paths over a period of time. And they didn't work like we thought they would, right? I've done that. Like I said, I've been on this journey since 93, but I didn't give up and I continued to seek guidance from my Heavenly Father. And I knew somewhere down the road, I was going to find the answer. And I told him, I said, if you give me the answer, I'll turn around and help someone else with the answer. And that's where we are today. The answers you're looking for, the knowledge that you need, it's in the Genesis Gateway. But as I said before, I can't go deep into that on this public call because there's knowledge and information that is not to be out in the public. You won't find it on Google. If it was on Google, you would have found it by now. If it was in social media, you would have found it by now. The only thing you find on Google and social media are breadcrumbs. And I would like to believe that those breadcrumbs led you here today. Because now we'll sit at the table. You're not focused on the breadcrumbs on the floor. You're focused on the bread on the table. And we want to share that bread with you. We want to break bread with everybody on this call. That's important to us because that's our ministry. But we have to educate you so that you understand. It could be easy for someone to say, hey, I just want $1 million. That's it. Just put it in my checking account and I won't bother you ever again. And someone could say, yeah, I could definitely do that, but I need to teach you how to manage that. The knowledge necessary to not only manage that, but multiply that, leverage that as well, so that not only did I give you a fish, but I taught you how to fish. And so that $1 million could be 5, 10, 20, $30 million. That is just an example. That's an example. But the knowledge has to come along with the resources. It has to, because you want to teach your next generation. If you have children, you have a family, you want to teach them what it is you know. That's what we are required to do. So this call tonight is all about moving forward to the next step, which is the Genesis Gateway. Now, some of you have received emails, and in those emails, you will be able to register and step into the Genesis Gateway. There is a guide in there. You'll definitely want to read that guide. You'll have the option to get that guide as well. And inside, you can ask some questions, the kind of questions we don't discuss out in the open, in the public, but in the Genesis Gateway, it's more private. And the deeper the question is, the more private the group becomes, to the point where you can get the answers that at first or initially, you might say, is that possible? Well, with knowledge and our Heavenly Father, it's possible. That's what's going to be important for you. That's why the knowledge is so important. Now, I could ask you all questions right now, and you wouldn't know the answer, and you would turn and say, well, what does that have to do with that bank account? What does that have to do with where my situation is now? It's all connected. It is all connected. But the knowledge is going to be very important. Now, anyone on the call that responded to two, or you placed a sentence in there, what is a question that you've asked several people in the past and you never got an answer? They couldn't answer that question for you. Put it in the chat. What have you asked? It could be a financial guru, it could be another network group or something of that nature. What is a question that you have asked and no one could answer the question for you? And you're still wondering, does anybody have the answer? Does anybody know the answer to this question? Now dealing with finance, dealing with, based on the knowledge that you already have, based on your current situation, the being in the Babylonian system or in the matrix, you might want to get out of the matrix. We can tell you exactly how to get out of the matrix and never go back into it. You can be in this world, but not of this world. So you can be in the system, but not of the system. You can utilize and leverage the system for your benefit without it benefiting from you so much as you benefit from it. And that's with protection, because we all need protection. That's very important as well. So if you have a question, put it in chat. Now is an opportunity for someone to get an answer to a question they've never got an answer to in the past. Now, it's 7:39. I know we want to keep these calls to under 60 minutes. So as I said, if you do have a question, now is the opportunity for you. But look at your financial situation right now. Look at your financial situation right now. What could change your situation for it to be more positive? What's keeping you up at night? What is it that's keeping you up at night? The concern that you have, especially if you have children. All right. If you have children, family, you're trying to figure out and navigate this system for yourself, but also for your children. So I see a question. How do we exit the admiralty court system without the system retaliating? That's a very good question. Very good question. When you look at the court system today, there are steps that you want to take to overcome the court system because it is a fictional or a legal fictional system. And because of that, you don't want to step into their legal fiction at all, ever. That's the first step. The second step is understanding how to step in with power and authority in their legal fiction. And in order to step into their legal fiction, you have to understand there is an equitable way for you to step in to their legal fiction with control. And so in our private network, we discuss that. We go over that scenario so that you understand how to have that control, how to have that authority over a legal fiction. You always look at that legal fiction, that court system, from an equitable perspective. So you are the equitable position in a legal fiction system. Now, keep in mind, we're on a public call, and that question has a part two in the Genesis Gateway. But when you look at a court system as a legal fiction, they cannot retaliate on what they cannot see. Keep that in mind. And we'll explain to you what I mean by that. But they cannot retaliate on what they cannot see. Keep this in mind as well. Having protection so that they cannot touch you is very important as well. That's a key element. You have to have protection on the table. That protection prevents them from ever laying hands on you, touching you, or anything of that nature. How is that possible? The answer is in Genesis Gateway. I'm just going to tell you, it's in Genesis Gateway. And as I said before, as you get closer into these private discussions, like Genesis Gateway, as you move forward, you're going to know exactly how to overcome each and every court system. There's so much I want to share with you about this. There's something very vital that I want to share with you. And if you are in the Genesis Gateway, you'll hear it. But there's a lot of money on a table for you involving every single court case you've ever had. What if I told you that every single court case that you have ever had from 18 up until now, there's at least $50,000 sitting on the table for you that you never collected on every individual court case? The knowledge is the only difference in where you are now and where you could be tomorrow. This knowledge it's overwhelming. It really is. But every single court case that you've ever had, there's at least $50,000 that you didn't collect. And you collect and you have protection on the table. This is what I tell people, since you asked that question about the court system. When you have protection and enforcement in your back pocket, going to court is like playing a game of chess. You line up all of your pieces wherever you want. But guess what? Because you're in control, you decide how many pieces the court actually gets to put on the table, on the board. So if you only want them to put 3 pieces on the board, 2 pawns and a king, you decide that. You are the one in control of the entire chessboard, not the judge. not any attorney, not any prosecutors. They cannot win against you ever. I'm just letting you know. I've definitely worked on court cases before, federal all the way back down to district. But just keep this in mind. That knowledge, that's in our private network. And you will get access to that if you come into the private network. Now, the next step is Genesis Gateway. There's more we can share in the Genesis Gateway than we can share out here in the public. But if that's what you're looking at, that's what you want, it's on the table. And the knowledge and information surrounding the whole entire court process, it's in the private network. And Nadiva, did you want to chime in as well to share anything regarding that?
Yes, yes. Regarding the question for the Admiralty Court, how do you exit the system without the system retaliating? Retaliation typically happens when there is a level of combativeness. Many people who are engaged with remedy are very combative. They engage in paper wars and paper terrorism. And so, from our perspective, we have to sort of change the tone in how we approach the system to let them know that we are not a threat. And if we come to the table non combative with clean hands, um, no fraudulent activity, and we bring forth the necessary, um, take the necessary actions to not only make sure that we are protected, but to make sure that our fiduciaries are also protected, those people that we are placing in position to help facilitate an action, then the quote unquote system will be more receptive to do business with you. Because essentially, the issue is not the case. The issue is just to settle the matter, whatever that matter may be. And so if we do that in a way that is non-combative, then that there would be no retaliation because you're doing things in good order from a business perspective, you know? So we have to just sort of look at it from that way as well. And just make sure that we stay out of the arena of being labeled as a terrorist or an enemy of the state. And I yield the floor.
Yes, um, that is very true as well, and it aligns with the fact that you want to be in a position and rise above any type of um, negative action when it comes to the court system. See, when you understand how the court system works and operates, and you have protection and enforcement on your side, you don't have to ever worry about or be concerned about what they are doing or not doing. You're moving from a higher authority. And because you're moving from a higher authority, you have confidence. And that confidence means that you don't have to position yourself for them to try and ever retaliate against you ever. It's not even part of the scenario anymore. Now, when you are feeling as if they are taking advantage of you and there's nothing you can do, then of course you feel like you're in a corner and you got to fight your way out. Now they're going to try to retaliate. But because of the knowledge and information that we have in a private network, you won't be in that position anymore. You're going to be able to rise above that, above their position. You'll be giving the judge instructions. Have you ever heard a judge ask you, so what would you like for me to do? That's a totally different perspective. Um, I see another question here as well. If trusts are private, how is it that courts, the law, can have a say as to what needs to be in your indenture? That's a good question because there are different types of trusts, and some indentures are private and they cannot request any information regarding that indenture at all. So you have two types of trust that you want to think about. You know, and I know this is a good one as well. I know Nadiva definitely want to get in on this one, boy. This is a good one. You have statutory trust. A statutory trust can be pierced, IRS, courts, but there's uh, other trusts outside of the statutory trust that they cannot even submit a request for. And that's what you want to understand about trust. And think about this. If there's anything in your trust that is tied to the jurisdiction that they control, then they can pierce that trust. But there are going to be other trusts that they cannot pierce because there's nothing about the jurisdiction in or involved in a private trust. See, people are defining private trust differently because they don't really know the difference between a public and a private trust. What makes it public? What makes it private? We're going to go into that, and we can definitely go deeper into that in the Genesis Gateway as well. But keep in mind, this is a public call. And so we'll go to the edge, but we won't step off. But we will break down why a trust is private and why it's public, and why the courts cannot touch a private trust. But if they can, that means it's not private. Now, Nadiva wants to, I'm sure she wants to add something to this question as well.
Yes, yes. That's a good question. I've never heard of people saying that the court can have a say so in terms of what needs to be in the indenture, but I understand where you're coming from. And Mikael, I do agree where you say that you have statutory trusts and then you have trusts that are non-statutory. And it is true that if a position within a trust that someone is deeming to be private is occupied, or there are elements within that trust that are tied to the system, then that's where those trusts can be pierced, right? The key is to prepare your documentation in a way where it cannot be adjudicated. And I'll just leave it there. Your paperwork has to be elevated higher than that of the highest court of the land in order for you to have complete control and autonomy over that trust indenture and the elements of the trust and the assets that are within that trust, right? Many people try to quote unquote fight the good fight using the tools of the system that is oppressing them, and that's going to be kind of difficult. Have to find a way to step outside of their system, utilizing, their laws, their codes, and their statutes to manage trust assets, if you will. Now, you can have a statutory trust, and this is there are benefits to having a statutory trust depending on what you're trying to do, right? But like Mikael said, many people think that they have a private trust just because they call it private. But if you're registering your private trust in the public jurisdiction, then that jurisdiction is going to have control over the documents that you register because you've literally handed over title to them by the registration. So that's another thing that we have to think about. But I understand where you're coming from. And I yield the floor back to you.
Thank you very much for that understanding as well. I think about when it comes to trust, spend a lot of time in that area, definitely in the financial industry. But the thing about the trust that rings in my ear is the fact that once you establish the private trust the correct way, that private trust is always going to be the trust that protects your most valuable assets. Your most valuable assets cannot be protected in a public or statutory trust. And those are the trusts that the courts, the IRS cannot pierce whatsoever. And that means that those are the trusts that have power and authority over the jurisdiction. I'm going to say it like that. Now, of course, we can go deeper into that inside the Genesis Gateway. And of course, you come into the private network, and we're really going to have some discussions. You're going to be like, wow, so that's how they did it. So that's how you're supposed to set it up. So this is what you're supposed to do when you create the trust. All these answers that you've been looking for, they're in the private network. They really are. And of course, you will have multiple. I tell everybody this, you need to have at least 4 trusts, at least 4. And you'll know and understand why. And you'll be able to see exactly what they're for and how they're structured to protect your most valuable assets, where no jurisdiction can pierce those trusts and affect those assets whatsoever. That also is connected to the court system as well. So if you're dealing with court, you got to have something that's above their jurisdiction. They can look up, but they can't reach it. That's how high you will be. That's how you have the ability to dictate how many pieces they can put on that chessboard, because you're in control, not the judge. Any other questions? Now, like I said, as you move forward, we're going to have a deeper conversation. As you continue to move forward, we'll have a deeper conversation. You will definitely be very enlightened as we move forward. Anybody who has received an email that is referencing the Genesis Gateway, put a 5 in the chat. Go ahead and put a 5 in the chat. If you received an email, you have an email regarding the Genesis Gateway, you may have provided your information as well, just for this call, but the email has a link for you to go into the Genesis Gateway. Put that 5 in the chat. There's a reason why I want you to put that 5 in the chat. Because if you were asking a question, I want to finish the conversation with you. I just can't finish that conversation in this public conversation we're having today, this public Zoom call. But jump to that, go to your email, look in that email, click on the link to go into the Genesis Gateway. There's a guide in there. I want to make sure you get that guide. And I want to talk to you inside the Genesis Gateway. Because as I said before, if you had a question this evening, you need to be in the Genesis Gateway. Why? So we can finish the conversation. There's more to that conversation. There's more to the question that you asked. And I want to go deeper on those questions. I enjoy the court conversation. There's more that you want to understand. As I said before, you got a court case, don't walk away from 50 grand. Don't walk away from 50 grand. It's there. That right there. Listen, I see Bernard, I see James, I see Myrna. Let me ask you, you tell me yes or no. If $50,000 dropped in your lap right now, would it change your financial situation? Would it change your financial situation? Yes or no? You tell me. Now, let me ask you this. If you had a utility payment or utility account and that utility payment was $100 and you made that $100 payment every month for the entire year, that's $1,200. If I said, listen, I'm going to drop $2,800 in your lap, would you accept it or reject it? You tell me, would you accept it or would you reject it?
Of course.
Because if you accept it, that means that the next year after you receive that, I dropped that $2,800 in your lap, you're not going in your pocket for that utility payment for a whole year, because the $2,800 is what you're going to use every month, $100 every month for the next year, and you'll still have funds left over. That's the kind of knowledge that we want to share with you in the private network. We do. We just ask that you meet us halfway. Work with us, not against us. And the answers you've been looking for will be placed in front of you. So we're inviting you to the table. We're inviting you to the table. The bread is on the table. We're not even focused on the crumbs. Let someone else have the crumbs. You know, you might give your crumbs to a family member, but you're sitting at the table. But go to your email, click on the link, get the guide, and meet us in the Genesis Gateway so we can finish this conversation, because it's a lot more I want to say. I just can't say it on here. Does that make sense? So anybody that has a plan to finish the conversation, that wants to hear more in the Genesis Gateway, just put a 10 in the chat, because we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. And like I said, we can't be out here in the public, you know, sharing this type of information. You know, there are entities out here that are not happy that we even know this. They're definitely not happy that we're sharing this information with individuals. And so they don't want those who are being financially oppressed to know the truth, that you don't have to be financially oppressed, that you don't have to be worried and concerned and stressed out over debt. You know, I see the court as an exciting thing. It's a good thing to me. I don't get nervous. I don't get scared. I'm not fearful. I know that there's something waiting for me on the other end. So I want everybody to put a 10 in the chat. I want to make sure you go to your email, click on the link, meet me in the Genesis Gateway so we can finish this conversation. Because there's some information I want to share with you. I just can't share it here. So who on the call is ready to go into the Genesis Gateway? Who on the call wants to change their financial situation? And when I say change your financial situation, I mean get access to the knowledge so you can change your own financial situation. I don't have to do it for you. I can lead you to the water, but you got to drink.
All right, we got some hands up and some comments in the chat. Are ready to move forward. That's all.
And I just that is, and I just want to say, you know, I love all people. I want to see everybody win. I want to see everybody win, not just one or two or three. I want everybody to win. And listen, we all can win and celebrate. And I can celebrate your wins. You can celebrate my wins all together. And what you have is for you. What I have is for me. It's more than enough to go around for everybody. So if you got a court case, you collect 50,000, that's great. I can do the same thing. You have your 50, I have my 50. He has his 50, she has her 50, and we can celebrate.
Yes.
So there's a lot more that we have in store for you. We definitely look forward to speaking with you inside the Genesis Gateway as well. If anybody has any questions, you can always ask those questions now. I'll turn it over to Nadiva, and she can address those questions for you as well.
Thank you, Mikhail. All righty. We want to make sure that everyone stays connected. However, you were invited to this call, you want to go back to the source. Some of you may have received a website. Some of you may have saw the call scheduled on a YouTube channel, or you may have seen something on social media that led you here. Either way, stay connected. And all of you are here because you completed the first step, which was to go to the website and you watched the free webinar that was on the website you received. And you completed a form and you received an email or a text invite to join this call. So we will take some final questions before we close, but if for whatever reason you're not comfortable asking your questions here, you can easily go back to the person who invited you to this call or the person's whose website you visited or social media page that you visited, and you can ask those questions there. You're going to want to make sure that you check your emails because you want to save the email address that you receive into your contact list to make sure that those emails do not go to spam, right? You're going to look for Genesis 128 Dominion Gateway Language in your email to make sure that you're connected with the right source. If you share the link to the website or the YouTube page that you received that led you here, just make sure that you're telling the people who you're sharing that information with to provide us with legitimate emails and telephone numbers to ensure that they can get the information just like you did, right? Also, you're going to want to go back to the email and you definitely are going to want to download that Genesis 128 Dominion guide because let me tell you, there is some key information in that guide that's going to help you to understand how to navigate space that we're in right now, right? And the questions that you asked earlier on in the call, some of those questions that you may have asked before that you hadn't gotten an answer to. That guide is going to give you perspective, is going to educate you on what this looks like to change your situation that Mikhail spoke of earlier on in the call. And just like he said, Mikhail said, the Genesis Gateway is essentially where we can have a deeper conversation with you. The Genesis Gateway is on a private platform, it's on a private server, and it's not on a public social media platform. So we're more comfortable having those conversations with you there. We have had call this month already inside of the Genesis Gateway to sort of answer some of those questions that people have. And we'll be having another call inside of the Genesis Gateway later this month to make sure that you all can get your questions answered. But if you do go in there, you can still ask your questions and we'll answer those for you the same day, if not give you a phone call. You want to make sure that you stay connected to the emails. Let me tell you why. There is some course material that is being provided to you, free course material that's going to be provided to you by way of your emails. You can go ahead and register for the platform and you can literally begin taking courses today that's going to help to educate you and edify you in this space, right? So don't ignore the emails, folks. We implore you, just please pay attention to your platform and make sure that you stay connected and definitely watch your emails and stay subscribed, all right? Now, there is one book that we would like to recommend that you read, and you can find this book inside of the Genesis Gateway. You could probably find it online too, but the name of the book is called They Own It All, Including You by Way of a Toxic Currency. You all are going to want to pick up the PDF to that book. It may still be in circulation. I'm not sure. You just have to Google it and see. The name of the book is, again, is called They Own It All, Including You by Way of a Toxic Currency. It may still be in circulation or not. I'm not sure. Just have to Google it, okay? All right. Any final questions or any thoughts or comments based on the information that was shared with you this evening? Now is your time. Now is your time. And again, we just want to make sure that you all stay connected. Engage with the YouTube channel, engage with the email. You can reply back to those emails. You can ask questions. You can text the phone number in those emails. We are here and we're available. We're real people, okay? So just stay connected. All right. So I don't see any additional questions in the chat, Mikhail. Yeah, so if it's okay with you, then we can go ahead and close out.
Okay, yeah. And if you do have any other questions, it might be those questions that you want to save for the Genesis Gateway. So I understand, like you said uh, earlier with your questions, it was a type of question that we want to dive deep into. We really do, because there's so much more that we want to share. We're on this public um, chat, and we just can't go that deep in the public chat. But Genesis Gateway, private network, we're already discussing these questions, and all the answers are already waiting in the private network. It's already there. We've been down this road
Yeah.
several times, hundreds of times. So the answers you're looking for, they're there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, we do appreciate you all joining the call tonight. We thank you so much for engaging and participating with us this evening. We do not take your time for granted at all. Know that you could easily be doing something else. So we appreciate you all just spending some time with us for this short time this evening. Next week, we will be in a banking summit next week, right, Mikhail? So we will not be meeting next week for Pagan Sunday. We are going to be, our next call, open call, public call is going to be the following Sunday, just so that you all know. And if you register for the class, you'll be able to see that there's a break already. But we wanted to get started this week to just begin to get the conversations going and things of that nature. But next week, we're taking a week off. And then the following week, we're going to pick back up and we're going to just run straight through the new year, right? All right, so that's going to give you all some time to go ahead and refer back to your emails, get situated, download the guide, begin to read it. So in 2 weeks, you can come back with your questions and then we can pick up from there. All right, sounds good?
Yes. Yes. Someone posted, they own it all. They posted a link in the chat as well. So
Perfect.
if you don't, if you're not able to order the book, someone just posted the link in there. James says James. James
Thank
just posted a link in there. So thank you, James, for sharing that. Everybody, go ahead and click on that link. That book right there is going to open up your eyes and your mind. And when you come to the Genesis Gateway, now you're going to have some more questions, some deeper questions that we can really get into as well. So that book is definitely going to help you. That's a good foundational book to read because there's some things that I want to share, but this book is going to help you understand what we're going to share with you in the Genesis Gateway.
you. Yes, indeed. All right, well, thank you all again, and you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Peace
you.
and love.
Peace and love.